Everyone loves the shiny front end of AI, but real transformation happens when you fix the enterprise core behind it. Today, Sharonyka and Vishnu from Publicis Sapient are here to shed light on their legendary journey from advertising agency to technology powerhouse, bridging the gap between the CMO and the CIO. We're talking about connecting customer experience to the cloud to deliver on the true promise of agentic AI. I'm Salim Hasham. Welcome to the AI Vantage. Let's go. Beyond the AI hype lies your next big opportunity. I'm Salim Hasham, Director of AI Transformation at Google Cloud, where I bring more than 2 decades of working with CEOs and their leadership teams to deliver business impact. Join me as I sit down with the brightest minds from Google, our partners, and customers to share real-world stories and proven strategies for AI success. This is your seat at the table. Welcome to the AI Vantage. Sharonyka, Vishnu, thanks for joining us. So before we begin, I'd love to understand the humans of AI. So if you can, just very quickly, tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what brought you to this moment, AI, New York, Publicis Sapient.
Yeah, great. So thanks, Salim, for having us here. Super excited to be here. I run the Google business unit at Publicis Sapient today. I've been here for about 4.5 years or so. And I came to Sapient because I really admired the brand for what they do. And it really has been built off of engineering prowess, technology, and using technology to transform the world. And so when I was looking at my next adventure, Sapient came calling. And my past has always been working in cloud and using cloud to transform enterprises and their businesses. So it was a perfect time because cloud was evolving, AI and ML were coming in, and I thought, oh, what a better time to go to a place that not only uses engineering as its superpower, but also brings in this whole media and creative world with a Publicis Group, partnership as a mother company. And so that's really how I got here, and it's been an exciting journey, and looking forward to doing now in this world of agentic AI. What's next?
Fantastic. Vishnu is the partner in crime.
A completely different journey than Sharonyka. I started 28 years ago at Sapient, straight out of college, but I did graduate at 14 from college.
Of course,
absolutely. Played a lot of technology roles, right? A strong foundation that then allowed me to just run the business, right? And what I do today is actually I lead our AI products that we're building at Sapient. We'll talk a little bit more about why we think we need to build products as a services company, right? And I also oversee some of our partnerships.
Fantastic. So we have the strategist, the market maker, the wizard, and the technical brain.
Well,
so this is
going to be fun. I'm the wizard or not. Not anymore.
Perfect. So before we go, I think, any further, you're preparing for the centenary. So congratulations, 100 years of service. You shared an amazing video with me, which is an AI masterpiece in itself, but it really sort of charts 1926. It's a single human having an idea around the advertising future, resiliency, change, the war, business changing, the world changing. So this to me is a wonderful theme around Publicis Sapient. So I'm wondering, Sharonyka, if you could just help us quickly understand the journey of where you began, where you are, because I think the Publicis Sapient of today is very different to 1926.
Sure. Yeah. So Publicis Sapient itself is about 30 years old. Publicis Group is 100 years old, and we're very proud. Big part of Publicis Group. But how Sapient really came about is, a group of very smart individuals, engineers really, came together and said, how can we really create customer experiences using technology? So everything was about integrating technology into creating a customer experience. And so if you think about, Publicis Sapient's history, we were the company that really built the first online bank. We actually created the first version of E-Trade for online banking. And actually, how we're also used to just picking our seats on airplanes today? We built the first back-end system for being able to pick your seats in an airplane. So our history has really been about creating experiences through the use of technology and the integration of that. And so when Publicis Group, who is the largest media conglomerate in the world today, but at that point in 2014, we're looking to think about, how can we evolve in the world of communications, because they knew that technology and data were going to be key to what they would be in the future. And so that's where the acquisition of Sapient came about. They acquired Sapient, obviously, again, the integration of data and technology. And since then, they've invested more in data and bought even Epsilon and Lotame and other companies. But at the core of it stays the same. How can we bring creativity, media, data, and technology together to really be able to create experiences for our customers. And now I know we'll talk a lot about this, but in the world of agentic AI, all of that is getting disrupted, and we'll talk more about that today. But that really is a history, and a proud moment for all of us that we celebrate 100 years and 30 years of Sapient and 14 years of us, 10 years of us being in the company.
And hopefully 100 years more.
Yes.
We are definitely looking forward to the next 100 years, although we won't be here, but.
Or an AI avatar of yours will.
Or maybe.
Who knows? And so a great segue. So we think about Sapient. So your 28-year tenure means that you've seen essentially the entire journey. With AI specifically, and we're all sort of either agreed or getting to the position that AI is very different. How, as Sapient, have you thought differently about moving from service provider, perhaps more of a product focus, but AI itself means you think differently, act differently, hire differently?
Yeah. And we saw this, we made this bet 3 years ago, right? If you think about 2023, I think, and just the explosion with what was happening in the world, we very quickly took a look at ourselves and what it's going to do to us, right? Because we were a services company. Whether you look at it from our overall group, right? We provide creative services. Sapient does a lot of technology transformation services. And we saw the trend coming that AI is going to start to disrupt the way that we do it, right? There's a couple of moments that you can think back to when we first started looking at websites coming up. Nobody knew what it was going to do, but everyone knew that it was going to do something. I actually go back even further, and you think about just when computers were introduced into the workspace, everyone moved from a paper-based thing to using a machine to do work. So I think that we saw this thing coming and we said, this is not going to be just something that's going to be another evolution, a step, right? This is absolutely going to disrupt the way that we're going to. So the first thing we did was we looked at ourselves internally and said, what do we need to do, right? Mm-hmm. Engineers are not going to code the way that I used to code maybe many, many years ago, right? Creatives are not going to do the same thing that they did, right? So when the first thing that we started doing was we actually said, how do we disrupt ourselves? What do we need to do? And out of that actually came enough and more knowledge to help our clients actually disrupt in this world, right? So it was very much a self-reflection moment. And I think we're better for it because we started the journey with ourselves and not just saying, oh, how do we make money with AI, right? So I think that that's a very powerful journey for us. And where we see today is, and you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, right? As a consultant, what you brought to the table was the expertise. Increasingly, agents are going to start to do this expertise. So we are now starting to think about what does products and people combination do, and how do we transfer a lot of our expertise into those agents? How do you pre-build workflows that are for banking, as an example, right? How do you embed the human experience that we were building on websites when you think about a human and an agent interaction? So we're actually thinking about it very much from a transformation perspective and not just saying, oh, let me finish a task using AI.
Fantastic. And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of the depth and nature of that later on. But let's maybe step back. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of noise in the market today. And so I think separating hype from reality is one of the things, at least on this series, that we want to focus on. And so Sharonyka, as you're talking to clients, as you're thinking about the business that you've built with Google, what are you seeing in terms of demand signals? How real are they?
Yeah, I think, and the reason our partnership with Google actually is so important, this is a great time to kind of really focus on that, is Google really brings those tools and technologies to market today that we then leverage to build all these products and solutions to really disrupt the market. And so for me, as I'm speaking to clients and partners alike, I think the thing that we see the most right now is people are really trying to figure out how do you change the front office. And that is really driving impact, I think, on the bottom line, from a cost optimization, time to market. And so we're seeing a lot of asks and demands around really what the front office transformation can look like with the world of AI and agentic AI. But I think one of the things that we'll talk about as well is in order to do that, we also have to look at the back end systems. So when clients are coming to us and talking about the front end, we do want to take a step back and say, how is your back end looking? Because just, fixing the glass layer, if you may, without really touching the core systems in the back end will give you immediate results maybe, but not long-term longevity and results. And as we know AI continues evolving on a daily basis. Like nothing is what it was a year ago for us. So I think that's the first and foremost thing that we're seeing a lot. I don't know, Vish, how you're feeling about it.
No, I think that, it's been a 2-year journey, right? More or less for all of us. And I often joke with all of you, right? Every year you seem to be moving the goalpost, right? So I think that a lot of the conversations that we're having with the clients is going back to the fundamentals, is what are you trying to achieve? What can you achieve? Because like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we were talking about Gen AI. We don't talk about Gen AI anymore. We talk about Agentic, right? So I think that the tool set and the capabilities are changing really fast. That is just the means to the end. So you have to always keep your focus on what you're trying to achieve and what's the outcome that you're trying to achieve. And that's what Sharonyka said is like, yes, I can do a chatbot. Great, you're improving the experience. But ultimately, if there's a core system that actually powers the chatbot, if that's still brittle or not as agile, you really can't go beyond a certain limit to that, right? So that's why we're focusing on both sides of it. How do you actually make software development better using tools that Google has? How do you actually develop better experiences? All of those things have to be thought in a whole continuum. Right?
And so let's pull the thread a little bit on that. And I think you sort of rightly said, who are we going to be in the future? Are we a services provider? Are we a product company? Does Agentic actually change that formula entirely? One of the things I think is quite distinctive is the architectural approach you have towards how do we take a front office transformation, but ground it in infrastructure, in data, in governance. And so how do you think about agentic transformations from an integration interoperability perspective?
I said this before, right? Like, I think that we're discovering a lot of things, right? I don't know that we know exactly where this is going, because the agentic itself, it's evolving, right? Like the capabilities are evolving. How easy it is to do something is evolving. So where we are right now is we're going to bring all of our capabilities together, right? Everything from strategy to say, if you're agentifying a process, why should you agentify that process? Why not another one, right? What's going to unlock the value for you? As I said, what is the experience? Humans and agents interacting. You still need humans in the loop in lots of these things, right? What does that interaction look like? What do you engineer? How do you get the data out of the actual system? And we call this our SPEED framework, which stands for strategy, product, engineering, experience, and data. And we're taking the same multidisciplinary approach to putting the teams, and now we're supercharging it with these products that we're building, which are pre-baked solutions that solve very specific industry needs, right? And we think that we can actually accelerate that much faster if we take that approach.
And so one thing that stood out to me, I think, was Bodhi, right? This platform that you've developed. And what makes it a little bit different to me is I think a lot of other vendors, and in this case, sort of a provider as a vendor, are saying, hey, we will build agents. We'll ship you our agents, you can go use our agents, right? But ultimately, you take my agent, you integrate it in your backend, your data, you manage the model, the training. Bodhi's a little bit different, right? It's a place, I think, that's almost a safe space where any customer can plug in a model, and it does the orchestration, it gives you governance. And so help me understand, the philosophy behind that. It's fairly distinctive. So I'd love our audience to sort of appreciate why you've gone down that road.
You're going to make me take this, I guess.
I know. I was gonna say, you are the owner of Bodhi.
So when we started the journey with Bodhi, it was actually, Bodhi's been around for almost 6 years now. So it's not one of these things that we built. And what we were trying to do actually was to industrialize how data scientists manage their models and just regular old AI ML models. But what we built was strong foundations from an enterprise perspective. You think about you wanting to access a model. Should you be accessing a model? Should Sharonyka be accessing the same model? So when you get into an enterprise context, you need to start thinking about what is security, who has permissions to do what, right? So we've actually evolved Bodhi as the world's been shifting. But what's really interesting is there's two things that we talked about. One was we wanted to, what we call as the glass box concept, which is we wanted it to be open. We wanted to plug into our clients' technologies. They make investments with you. We wanted to work on Google Cloud. So we're not doing something that's really proprietary that locks you down, right? We're very open about it. It's very composable. The thing that is very different is that we've built in all of these workflows and pre-built layers. So you have a jump start to start your AI journey, but it's open and flexible enough that it can be customized to what you need as a client, right? And that is resonating with our clients because, frankly, we've been on a lot of journey on, POCs and pilots and all of that stuff. But now, there's enough and more studies that show that, not value is not being extracted as much, right? And that's really because you need to start stitching all of these individual efforts that you had into something that's running the business process. And that's really what Bodhi does very well, right? So even if our clients had done their POCs and pilots, we can actually bring it along into the journey. It's not something that, we're going to scrap all of that stuff and rebuild it on Bodhi, right? So we took a very unique approach to how we're going to be incremental to our clients and not say, here's a product and we're going to lock you into that.
Perfect. So maybe let's bring it to life. If there's an example that you can talk about, I'd love to understand, Sharonyka, how you thought about the problem to be solved, the business problem, because I think there's part of the agentic process that's effectively different. Not a technology problem, but how do I think about a business value chain distinctively? How do I almost reimagine it so that the impact we're having is what we expect? And then Vishnu, if you can help us then take the story of the Bodhi philosophy to say, in reality, here's how we grounded it in technology. Here's how we made it both effective, manage the risk, but got to impact and time to value.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing about the world that we're in right now, specifically with agentic AI, it's, before the CMO would do what the CMO does and the CIO, and they're very separate entities, right? Separate business units working very separately. I think in the world of agentic AI, they really have to come together as leaders to drive the actual transformation that drives the value for the organization. So I think a platform like Bodhi and the clients that are coming to us, they're realizing that they can't do anything in silos anymore. And so bringing together the technologies, specifically obviously Bodhi being built on GCP native tools and services really gives us that opportunity to bridge that gap that the organizations have seen until this point in our time. And so when clients are coming to us with the ask, we're able to see that we actually have built something that bridges that gap for them, that gives an opportunity for them to work together to drive the business value for it. And I think a great example is a CPG company, right, Vish, that we work with.
Yeah, and obviously the easiest example for us is to take it through the marketing side of things because they started the journey much earlier, by the way, right? As we started creating content and everything else, it was an easy leap to take Gen AI in the marketing space. But even if you look at marketing right now, right, you don't do SEO anymore, right? And to put metadata in for algorithms, right, that now run search, right, you have to dig deep into the enterprise systems to get it. So when we built Bodhi, we were building it for a marketing use case. We could ingest a brief, figure out the audience automatically, be able to then take that same agentic process, go suggest creatives for creatives to actually, pick and choose, and then be able to push it out into the channels to do it. But along the way, you also have to think that marketing is not so much so yes, you put something on the website, but the searchability of a website is not the same that it was 3 years ago. So you have to go much deeper into the ecosystem to get all of that kind of metadata to be able to put it into the languages that you can get it. So I think that where we started seeing Bodhi was because we could connect to core systems, because we could agentify processes on the front end, we're able to actually bring a lot more value. Now we're looking at the same client to start connecting forecasting models. How do you push your advertising to the right places where you're sending your product to? Because there's nothing worse than trying to push a promotion to a place and then no stock. Yeah, right. So I think that the last thing that I'd say is I think we're just scratching the surface on what is the imagination and how can you reimagine business processes, and that flexibility and that agility becomes much more important, right? Because everyone's going to catch up doing the workflows that you're doing right now. The competitive edge is going to be how can you then start to reimagine how you do your business, right? And we feel the partnership that we have with you, Bodhi being built on Google Cloud, then your own stable of AI innovations that are coming on, we're actually going to be much we're going to be able to help our clients much better with that.
And so if we look at sort of agentic from it, right? So we've been through the agent that writes the email in your voice. We've been through a little bit of planning. I think reasoning is the word du jour, so models that can actually think through a problem. Would you agree that sort of execution is the next gulf that we're going to be bridging? So there are models now that are, in theory, able to take a reason to plan and execute on your behalf. But in reality, as you think about your customers and their problems, what does that mean? And from a Publicis Sapient, what are you excited about the next 12 months to say, if this is the case, here's how we are going to gear for that?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, right, we can talk about agentic all day long, but we really have to be able to define the processes that drive the agentification, right? This is like, you can't just throw agents at it. Like you can throw agents at it, but obviously you need to have a human in the loop to really validate the compliance, make sure it's on brand, and all of those things. So I think just the journey of agentification will continue with the human in the loop constantly to be able to make sure you're validating it. I mean, I think we are constantly building into the models we're building, the products that we're driving in market with you guys is, how can we make sure that we are driving to the execution end is actually valid and the client is seeing the real value, because as you said, we are like in POC land all the time. The clients are worried they're not going to get the real value. So I think just the agentification of the process, making sure that the processes, the underlying core systems, all of those have been brought to par and making sure they're being modernized. The legacy systems are being modernized so that the execution arm can actually deliver the real world outcomes that we're looking to drive.
For me, I'm excited. I just think that we are literally looking at a blank canvas. We can reimagine so many things that we don't even think, we would be able to do right now. And that's really, discovery and being able to rebuild things. That's really what excites me, right? And every time I go to a client, we hear about their problems and we think about, but we can solve it in a very different way than we did before. Right, that the traditional approach of let me do a big discovery, let me do this, and I just feel like we can be so much faster in delivering results for our clients, which is really nice.
Which actually we've seen in our clients, right? What used to take months and months can now be deployed within weeks, and simple things like hyper personalization can now be deployed within hours versus even days. Like we built a solution on Google Cloud that does trend spotting. So let's say a product goes viral, like somebody on TikTok, an influencer decides to put the product out, very quickly the brands can pick up that signal, right? Use agents to then deploy campaigns, assets, and then push it out to the actual, consumers like yourselves and myself to be able to.
Is an N of one campaign.
Yes,
which is amazing.
And it's hyper personalized just to me or to yourself. So I think that's where this world is really going to evolve into. Is that really the one-to-one targeting that you can do that you were not able to do within hours before. So exciting time for sure.
Well, I think we'd all agree the world will be very different than it is today. And so let's end maybe with my favorite part, the mystery question. And so if AI could teach you one skill or solve a mystery, what would it be? Let's start with you, Sharonyka.
If it could solve one skill, like it's something that I think about all the time. So my parents and I were traveling to Italy recently, and my parents just, I think they know the word AI, but they don't really know what it does, which is fine. I think a lot of us have as aging parents. And so when we went to a very small town, and I wanted them to be able to experience the culture and the cuisine and everything of that local area and not be just, restricted to going to like Rome or Milan, because those are the big, easy to speak English towns. And so I downloaded Gemini on my parents' phone, and I gave my parents this task that they had to go and explore the small town and make sure they made their own itinerary. They went and spoke to locals through Translate, right? Used Gemini to really say, like, in the 5 hours, what all should I see and do? Where should I eat? These are my dietary restrictions. So essentially, they just had a personal travel guide. And I felt so comfortable that I could let them loose on their own and not be there with them the whole time. And I was just so proud of mine. Now my dad will just use Gemini and tell me different random things he's doing. So I will say that's the one skill I learned, is to teach my parents how to use Gemini so that they can go do exciting things for themselves at this age. Yeah.
Vishnu.
I'm thinking about mysteries to solve. No, I think that, for me, I kind of feel like I may just change the question a little bit. What I would really like to see is, I'm a history buff, right? And yes, you can see films and stuff like that. I want to see something. I'm sure AI can really do something that is experiential, going back and looking at history that is living in the moment rather than looking at it on a flat screen or something like that. So maybe that's what I would love for AI to solve for me.
Virtual living history.
A virtual living history.
I think you're on.
There we go.
I think for me, just listening to your earlier example, it's getting the plane seat that I want before anybody else.
Right? Yeah.
Sharonyka's pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having us, Salim. So good to see you.
And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next AI Vantage. Thank you for tuning in to the AI Vantage. be sure to follow us on social. If you're interested in learning more about the Google Partner Ecosystem, visit the address on the screen below. Remember, the best way to predict the future is to build it. See you next time.